Oh, hello. It seems like every 90s kid looks back on shows like Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark with rose-colored glasses. And while those shows are really fun, I feel like no one gives Eerie, Indiana enough love. It had episodes about a family that never aged, kept fresh in giant Tupperware coffins, a deceased child's heart preserved and transplanted into a classmate with eerie consequences. Even a mischievous mummy shambles out of a TV on Halloween night. Bigfoot loots the neighborhood garbage. Elvis Presley himself lives quietly on a local paper route. This wasn't Goosebumps. It was way stranger. Unlike most people in my school, I didn't have access to networks like Nickelodeon, the Disney Channel, or MTV when I was growing up, let alone NBC, which is where Eerie, Indiana debuted in 1991. In 1997, I lived in the woods with my family, and we had this satellite that mostly hosted channels with white noise on them. It was riveting stuff. But one network we were lucky enough to beam into our house was Fox Kids Network. And that's how I came across Eerie, Indiana. To this day, I'm still looking for a show that matches its vibe and originality. And sure, we have shows like Stranger Things and a million other 90s inspired shows like that, but Eerie, Indiana is what started it all. Back in the early 90s, NBC wanted their own version of Twin Peaks, but instead of adults sipping black coffee in creepy diners, they wanted kids dealing with the weirdness of suburbia. Eerie, Indiana was created by Jose Rivera and Carl Schaefer, with Joe Dante of Gremlins fame pulling strings as consultant and frequent director. The show had way more bite than your average after-school special. At its core, it followed Marshall Teller, a 13-year-old transplanted to the supposedly idyllic Midwest town that proudly calls itself the center of weirdness for the entire planet. With his new best friend Simon, they go on all sorts of adventures that kids like me wished we were going on, you know? Is that just me? It's probably just me. I was bored as a kid, okay? I lived in the woods. Each bizarre case got logged in Marshall's evidence museum, located in the attic of his house. And while it starred kids, this was no Saturday morning fluff. Eerie leaned into dark satire and smart horror concepts that adults could appreciate just as much as kids, sometimes more. The thing is, NBC got exactly what it asked for. Problem was, in 1991, it might have been too weird, too early, too ahead of its time. Only 19 episodes of Eerie, Indiana were produced, but they covered a pretty big range of weirdness. Rather than recap every episode, let's look at some of the most infamous and imaginative stories that made this show so frickin' good. Episode 1, Foreverwhere. This is one of the most memorable episodes for me. In it, Marshall's family meets a cheery suburban housewife selling Foreverwear. You know, those things you took to school that held your sandwich and lunch stuff. Yeah, that thing. Always by her side are her two twin boys. So she invites Marshall's mom to a sales party at her house. It soon becomes clear that her product doesn't just keep leftovers fresh, it keeps people fresh. We also meet Marshall's best friend, Simon. I love this kid. He's got chutzpah, you know? We'd all be lucky to have a best friend like Simon. Marshall discovers that the neighbor's twin sons have been sealed in oversized Foreverwear containers every night since 1964, preventing them and their mother from aging a single day. Now, I love the detective aspect of this series. The kids are always sneaking around, being really intrusive of the neighbor's property line. They have no sense of boundaries. Marshall's mom signs the Tupperware contract, which sets Marshall and Simon out on a midnight mission to not only save the twins from their overbearing mother, but to protect Marshall's mom from the evils of BPA plastic.
Now what?
We'll take care of Mother.
Oh wow, I guess the twins are gonna go beat their mother now. Do you see why parenting is so important, people? The episode concludes with Marshall discovering that the twins have aged rapidly. So did their mom. One of the great things about the show is that it's not a straight-up anthology series. The consequences of each episode carries over to other episodes. Like these twins, they show up a couple more times throughout the season. A creepy suburban plastic cult. That was just the appetizer. In the episode The Retainer, Marshall's friend Steve has this dental headgear that causes him to hear what dogs are thinking. It's pretty funny because these pooches are aggressive.
I think he likes me.
That's what you think, you
bite-sized punk.
Anyway, Marshall hooks Steve up with a little homemade shortwave radio. Simon puts a tinfoil hat on him, and they make him walk around with his arms up like this, trying to mimic a satellite. Now Marshall can get to the bottom of the town's ominous dog cult. When they sneak into the local pound at night, they find a human leg bone. Seriously, this is the pound owner's leg bone. See, that's why this show is one of the best kids' horror shows ever made. They have the balls. Whatever, shut up. The dogs are all riled up and ready for a doggy revolution, but Marshall and the boys free all of them from their cages. However, the pooches aren't satisfied until they can get Steve's headgear. Unfortunately, Steve can't get it off his head and they chase him away. And Marshall and Simon never hear from him again, which probably means that he got eaten. Can you believe the writers let Steve get eaten?
Do you think we'll ever see Steve again?
Maybe we will, Simon.
No, you won't. Have you ever asked yourself, what if a machine had feelings? I'm sure we asked that to ourselves way more than we did in the 90s, I'll tell you that. In the episode, The ATM with the Heart of Gold, Marshall's dad creates an ATM AI monstrosity that reminds me of a 90s ChatGPT. Anyway, Simon is feeling left out by Marshall, who's become friends with two older, cooler kids. So Simon starts hanging out with Mr. Wilson, the ATM machine. Mr. Wilson takes an instant liking to Simon, and he's hell-bent on keeping him as a friend, so he starts showering him with money. Also, we got the voice of Aladdin playing one of the cool kids in town.
You guys should see Ace's new girlfriend. She's not a girl, she's a woman.
Simon goes from outcast to popular kid overnight as he hands out cash to all the kids around town. Look at this badass over here. Just walking in there 90s style with that 90s slow-mo. Alright, so I love a few things about this episode. Obviously, how prescient the AI angle is, but also how we find out that Simon's home life is really bad. That's why he likes hanging around Marshall and his family so much. It's the family he wishes he could have. It really makes you root for Simon, you know? Marshall comes to appreciate Simon more by the end of this episode too. It's the chemistry that these two kids have that makes the show that much better. It's the heart of the whole series. If you didn't believe in this duo going on adventures together and their friendship and their love for each other, you just couldn't hook into the show as much. We also see the dark side of loneliness and how it can result in someone like Simon personifying a machine with dangerous results. Eventually, the consequences of taking money that isn't his catches up with Simon. He and Marshall realize that the ATM has been robbing money from random people's accounts to please him, so the whole town goes bankrupt. Ultimately, Simon chooses to do the right thing, even if it means breaking the poor ATM's electronic heart. Mr. Wilson ends up getting dismantled, never to dispense money again. The episode Heart on a Chain. It's a mix of schoolyard melodrama and the supernatural. It starts at a cemetery. Where do I begin? Marshall and his friend Devin both like a new girl named Melanie. They're both trying to impress her, and while doing so, Devin bites the dust while skateboarding. I mean, right there, just, it blows my mind. When I was a kid, I was like, what? I was like, maybe he'll make it through it. Nope. Big time points to the writers for that. What is wrong with me? I'm so pleased that the writers are so morbid and violent. The little girl gets his heart as a transplant. Then Devin's spirit basically possesses her. She starts talking like him, skateboarding like him, and she almost gets a heart attack every time she's about to kiss Marshall. At the end of the episode, Marshall and Melanie decide to part ways. Was it worth it, Marshall? This episode is wild. It covers themes of death and grief. It's just something you just don't expect to see in a kid's show. This was for ages, 9 to 12? Nothing like a sugary bowl of cereal and death. And the friend zone. I love how Simon's just like waiting for all of this to fall apart so he can play again with Marshall. In the episode The Lost Hour, Marshall hates that Indiana ignores daylight savings time. So one night he defiantly sets his clock back an hour and wakes up to find everyone in town has vanished. He's fallen into a Lost Hour pocket universe, an empty version of Eerie. The only other people there are an old milkman and a teenage girl named Janet who's been missing for a year. They show her through a milk carton and it's like a bridge between the real world and the parallel universe. It's kind of cool. Marshall and Janet are hunted by sinister garbage collectors called the Relativity Police, who try to erase anomalies from this dimension. Marshall eventually helps Janet return to her family and just barely escapes the lost hour himself. The real crazy thing about this episode is that, the old milkman that we see throughout the whole thing, it turns out that that's Marshall when he gets way older, so I guess he'll be solving weird, petty parallel crimes all the way into his late 80s.
Welcome to the Lost Hour.
Why does Marshall have a British accent when he gets older? I'm only 45. Yeah, and you got an English accent all of a sudden, dude. And you need to use lotion. In Reality Takes a Holiday, the last episode of the series, Marshall stumbles into an existential crisis when a mysterious script arrives in his mailbox. And that script is literally the blueprint for this episode we're watching. 1 minute he's avoiding his family's trip to the movies. The next, his world dissolves into movie set weirdness. Suddenly, the people he thought were his friends are calling him Omri. There are boom mics overhead, and Dash X is whispering in the writer's ear about a stunt to unalive Marshall so he can become the star. We're going to talk about Dash X in a second, just bear with me. The only way out? Marshall literally breaks into the writer's office, scribbles in a happier ending, and hands the new pages off just in time. And just like that, Eerie snaps back to normal. Well, Eerie Indiana's version of normal. This episode is very unsettling because everyone we've come to know throughout the whole season is just completely different. And they're all kind of worse versions of themselves, It's actually really unsettling to watch. It feels like a punch to the gut to see these upstanding people that are very likable turn into complete strangers that are not as likable. I mean, look at how Simon acts. He's a pervy little creep now.
Justin, hands off! I am not going to take this from a sexist pig 9-year-old.
The mom is way edgier in her actress form. She's got a tattoo on her breast and she's aching for a character arc where she gets to show off her Victoria's Secret lingerie. Oh, I'm serious. She says it.
When does good old mom get to try out her Victoria's Secret catalog?
What other kids show do you see the mom of the series walking around in a leather bra?
She's in her bra!
The dad is now a pompous Shakespearean type actor who's always talking about his days as a thespian. And he loves massages. Why is he doing that on the street? Doesn't he have a trailer? I'm wondering, is this based on the real actors' personalities? I hope not. The sister even makes a joke about how pointless her part on the show is.
Any new pages come in for the script?
Gee, I hope not. I worked all night on my big line.
Joe Dante plays himself in this episode, obviously because he directed multiple episodes of the series. But look at this awkward exchange he has with Omri Katz.
Omri, don't make this any more difficult than it already is. Mr. Sensitive.
Good for you, Omri. Don't you ever let someone touch you like that without your permission.
Especially not some duded up, egg-sucking gutter trash.
In my opinion, each of these episodes really sells the quirky imagination of Eerie, Indiana. And those were just the big cases. The rest were rapid-fire doses of suburban horror delicacies. A Halloween special where Simon's brother swaps places with a mischievous mummy. A ghost boy in the episode The Dead Letter, who begs Marshall to deliver a childhood love note to his now old lover. This one starred a young Tobey Maguire before he eventually became Spider-Man and this guy. The Hole in the Head Gang, where Marshall stumbles into a ghostly outlaw and Dash X makes his first appearance. A werewolf-themed harvest festival in Mr. Cheney. I love how creepy the werewolf transformation was in this episode. I know it's not cutting edge, but the actor really sold the spookiness here. My son made me rewind this part 3 times, so. The Loyal Order of Corn was an interesting take on small-town cult groups in which it teased that Dash X might be more than human. Look, we gotta talk about Dash X for a minute, okay? The gray-haired enigma with plus and minus signs on his hands, who has zero memory of who he is. He pops up, they name him based on those markings on his hands, and he immediately becomes the true wild card of the show. When my wife and I were rewatching the show recently, we were like, why is he talking like that?
Who would be crazy enough to mess with someone's stuff?
My guess is the actor probably wanted to sound older than he was, and he added a little bit of gruffness to his performance. But it's kind of ridiculous, and he reminds me of Corey Feldman in The Lost Boys.
We're fighters for truth, justice, and the American way.
How he tried to make his voice lower and more grown up. My wife also thinks he looks like a male version of this actress. And you can't unsee it now. Like I was saying, in The Loyal Order of Corn, we finally get a glimpse into Dash X's mysterious backstory. He's working for this secretive lodge, unlocks a cabinet with those same symbols that he has on his hands, and they find a crystal-powered TV portal that sends Simon into another dimension. The lodge's bartender? Not a human, but an alien stranded here since 1908. He's the one who built the TV portal, and he has the same marks as Dash. The bartender's like, "You've got work to do on this planet," then disappears. And that's it. No follow-up, no payoff, no flashbacks, just an unsatisfying trail of Cheeto dust that no one ever cleans up. The show ended before Dash X's origin, purpose, or ultimate mission could ever be revealed. His mystery remains Eerie's greatest tease. But I guess he was an alien or something. I'm not exactly sure what to make of it, but 90s kids, sound off in the comments below. Well, let's figure this out. Then there's The Broken Record, the episode that almost vanished from existence. NBC had it scheduled in October of 1991, but it never actually aired in the original run. There isn't any solid information as to why it never came out as scheduled. For years, fans treated it like the lost episode of the series, until the Disney Channel picked it up in reruns in 1993. And here's the kicker, it was inspired by the whole 80s satanic panic where parents thought heavy metal records were secretly corrupting kids. In the episode, a shy kid named Todd gets hooked on a rebellious record by the Pitbull Surfers, which was a play on the real-life band The Butthole Surfers. After listening to it, Todd suddenly transforms into a pint-sized rock star. But the real horror comes when his verbally abusive dad plays the record backward and discovers the subliminal messages are his own angry words.
Why do I get the feeling that I'm talking to myself? You think I enjoyed it?
Despite its fierce creativity, Eerie Indiana never clicked with its audience in its 1991 NBC run. The big problem? A terrible time slot. Sundays at 7 p.m., up against the overly serious nightly news show, 60 Minutes. Kids weren't watching then. Adults tuned out thinking it was just a kiddie show, and the result were ratings that sank beneath the floor. NBC also didn't know how to market it. Was it a kids show, a satire, a horror comedy? It straddled too many lines, leaving both kids and adults confused. Eerie Indiana was simply ahead of its time. Just a year later, Are You Afraid of the Dark would thrive, followed by Goosebumps. After 19 episodes, it was canceled. Luckily for us, Cancellation was not the end of Eerie Indiana. The Disney Channel picked it up in 1993. By 1997, it landed on Fox Kids, paired with Goosebumps, and suddenly, it had the audience NBC could never find. There was even a short-lived spin-off in 1998 called Eerie Indiana: The Other Dimension, which swapped in a new cast and only lasted 15 episodes. I actually watched the first episode recently, and it just didn't have the same magic. There were new writers, new actors, and zero of the charm. But I will say this, the subject matter, at least of that first episode, was sort of ahead of its time. Like the first episode having to do with a TV that had access to all sorts of weird cable channels that were based on little things, big things, just like little minute stuff like cooking shows or how to maintain a mall and how to clean. It just reminded me of YouTube, but way before YouTube existed. If you want a video on the sequel series, just let me know in the comment section and eventually I will dive into this strange little extension of Eerie Indiana. Do yourself a favor this Halloween season and give the original series a watch. It'll take you back to the days where all you needed was a Capri Sun and a box of Lunchables to have a perfect chill session. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, seal the like button. You can also get access to more exclusive content by going over to my Patreon at patreon.com/Dunniverse, or you can hit the join button right here to become a member directly on YouTube. You'll get loads of videos not available anywhere else, and you'll get your name in the credits, which I know you've been dreaming of your entire life. And as always, see you next time.